Jim, you were a player, Davis Cup coach, interviewer, commentator. How do you see tennis today?
Well, tennis today is, first of all, it's very exciting. We have an amazing group of champions that are still changing the face of the record books. So the sport is very, very healthy at the top level. The Grand Slams, the big tournaments featuring all the men and women, these combined events they're magnificent. And the level of tennis that we're seeing from these players is truly extraordinary. And their sportsmanship as well has been pretty amazing to witness. Since I stopped playing the game at the ATP level in 2000, I've watched it very closely, and I'm just really excited and proud for where the sport has come from there to here.
You were #1 champion. You had a very good serve, big forehand, good mover. On the backhand, you had a continental grip on your right hand, semi-western left hand. Could you have been #1 with that backhand?
Well, I mean, my backhand was certainly a bit of a problem. I'd say that I achieved what I achieved in spite of my backhand grip. Certainly not because of it. I wish I'd had a more technically correct grip. And that's one of the things that when I look at young players coming up, male or female, I'm looking for potential problems that they'll have to solve like I had to, and the fewer that they have to worry about, the easier it is for them. So when you see younger players, you see someone like Felix Auger-Aliassime or a Coco Gauff or Stefanos Tsitsipas, you see that technically they're pretty sound. So for them, the problem solving will be less than I had to deal with. And that's really important in today's game because we had more time. The ball wasn't coming quite as quickly, consistently at us, so they have less time to react and to change the grips. So technique has really become, it was always important, but it's even more important in the modern game.
Do you think we need more Kyrgios or Federer today?
I think we need both, honestly. I think that the match here at Wimbledon this year, the second round match with Kyrgios and Nadal, because there was true animosity between the players, created genuine excitement for the sport. And while I personally, I like to see good sportsmanship and I like to see the camaraderie that tennis kind of brings to bear, I'm also aware of the public marketplace that they're more interested, the general sports fans more interested if there's a little spice to a match. And there was real spice to that match, and it was very exciting. There was a big buzz in center court for that match.
With the new challenge system, do you think McEnroe would have been as famous as he was then?
Well, John knows how to work the system and to try and maneuver. He's basically a lawyer on the court trying to move people's opinions around, with whether it's the line people or the umpire or even his opponents. So I certainly think that the challenge system has muted a little bit of those disagreements between the chair umpires and the players, but there's still room for personality. John has it plenty, as we still see today in his commentary, and when he plays on the Invesco series, he's still very animated and very competitive, and that would have always been there no matter what.
Tennis has been dominated by the three musketeers, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. Do you think anybody can replace them?
Well, there's a famous expression that there are a lot of irreplaceable people in the graveyard. Tennis will go on without them in the same way that basketball went on without Michael Jordan, and new stars are created. We're going to miss them. What they've done to the sport will be incredibly difficult to equal, if impossible. But they're men like anyone else, and when we started with them on the tour, we didn't realize that their greatness would be to the extent that it is today. There might be some others that come up and surprise us as well.
When you do the interviews, you really get to understand the player. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, you start with the premise that you only interview people who have won on center court. Then you're in a good spot already. They're in a good mood, so that helps. And I think also the trust that the players would have in someone like me who has been in their shoes before enables them to feel comfortable. I'm not going to ask them a question that's going to make them embarrassed. I'm not going to put them in too tough of a spot. I mean, I'll ask some real questions about the tennis, and they may feel a little bit of a sting in some of those if I ask them about certain points of the match. But when I'm asking about their personalities, what I'm trying to do is what you're trying to do. You're acting on behalf of your audience now, trying to get information from me. I do the same thing. I'm just trying to act on behalf of the people at home and think about what would they like to know about these players, and then trying to ask some questions that, if the circumstance is right, they can be fun and the players can express themselves in a way that they normally wouldn't to the public.
Who do you think is the most fun to interview?
Federer is the easiest by far. You literally ask him, "Hey Roger, how are you?" and he'll go on in 7 different ways and tell you 7 things you had no idea about. So he's been magical both with his tennis but also as a leader on and off the court. He's shown the players how to be more generous with themselves and to be more relaxed in that setting. He's led by example. He's been wonderful. Andy Roddick was an amazing interview. Marat Safin was incredible. So it's been a real joy for me to be able to interface with the players after these matches.
If you look at American tennis today, I mean the WTA, the American players are doing really well.
Yeah.
When you used to play, those were the best times for American tennis. How do we get back there where we have the supremacy in ATP?
Yeah, well, there are a couple things. First of all, yeah, we're very, very healthy in the women's game. We have players from Serena to Madison and Sloane, and then now we have some younger players with Whitney and Coco and Amanda. We have a lot. And many, many more I'm not mentioning as well. And on the men's side, we've had good players, but not Grand Slam champions. But basically that's because the top 3 and the top 4 with Murray as well and Wawrinka, they've kind of shut everyone else out. So for us, it's about continuing to nurture our players, continuing to have them work the hardest and be the smartest and most professional players. That's not always been the case with our players on tour. They've left a few pieces of the puzzle aside, and everyone else at the top is doing everything right. So for us, it's continuing to nurture the process, make sure that our players are enabled to be the best they can be, but ultimately it comes down to them making that choice, whether they want to pursue every angle to be the best player they can be.
Tennis is an absolutely beautiful sport. What does tennis need to grow even more?
Well, boy, tennis is so big internationally right now. We've never had bigger viewers or bigger crowds at these big events like Wimbledon, like in Indian Wells or Miami. We're seeing records set every year in these combined events. For me, the more times that we can get our very best male and female players playing in the same spot, that's the strongest representation of the sport that we have. So at the top level, that's important to continue this process of combining events. And at the lower levels, it's a little bit more complicated. And star power really drives things, and we're competing in a very competitive marketplace for mind share, for eye share. So I like where tennis is at, but we have to be mindful that we're competing against a lot of other entertainment options.